Folks, welcome to our video on MySQL and how to set up the database for our address book project. This is going to be a fairly short one because it's fairly straightforward, and once you get the feel for it, I think you'll like setting up MySQL databases. To do this, what we're going to do is run our map control panel. So start that up, and we want to make sure that we have both servers, Apache and particularly MySQL, set up. We'll just give that a moment to come forward. And once it comes up, we want to see those green lights on Apache server and MySQL server. And there we go. All right, now that we have those up and running, we're going to go to our web start page. Now, I think on Mac, this automatically comes up, so you don't have to press any buttons, but on Windows, we're doing some things in the background. On Windows, we just hit the web start page link here, and it should open up your default browser. Slowly. Now remember, your default browser is going to be opening up to your localhost web server, so that's why we had to make sure that Apache server was running. And what we're looking for here is that PHP myadmin that I showed you in the setup of MAMP. So I'm going to go across to PHP myadmin. And when you do, you should be automatically logged in here to PHP myadmin. Now what we want to do is make a new database, so we can either hit new over here or you can go to databases, and we've got this form here. Either way, doesn't matter. And we're going to call it address book. I like to use the camel case, no spaces. I like to use camel case. And don't worry about what this is talking about here, just hit create. Now once we've made it, you can see it's actually put it over here. It's actually taken my capital letter out, which is a bit annoying. And in here we're going to make a table called addresses. So these are the addresses inside of our address book. Now it says number of columns. I actually want 6 columns. So you can clock that up to 6, or actually we do want 7 columns. So I'm going to clock that up to 7 and hit go. And now I'm getting a whole lot of depreciation or deprecation notices. Not interested in those, so I'll just ignore all those. Now we should have 7 fields here ready to fill out. Now what we're doing here is we're defining the container in which we will store the addresses of our friends. So that container needs to have one field for each of the things we're asking in our form. So that would be address, then suburb, then postcode. Then we'd have phone and email. Oh, I forgot name. That would probably be an important thing to know about your friends, wouldn't it? So I'm actually going to fill all those out. So the second one down, I'm going to put in name. I'm going to use address, suburb, postcode, email I think was next, and phone. Now the special one at the top I'm going to put in as an ID number. So I'm just going to get you to put in ID there. The next thing to consider is what type of information we're going to be storing into each of these. So ID is set to int. They're all set to int, which is short for integer, which means a whole number. And ID as a whole number is just perfectly fine, but it's not fine for a name. So there's a number of different options we can change this to. The most common one is varchar, variable length character array. Or if you go looking through, there's a text. There's a number of different options, but the best one for this would be varchar. In the early days of SQL, we tried to conserve as much space as possible. And if you define something as just a character field, and then you gave it some sort of length, which we're going to do now, say 50, if you did that, then every name would take up 50 characters. And that was undesirable in the days where we had far less memory and far less disk space. These days it's not desperately important. But a varchar was invented then to mean to sort of save us some space by just storing the number of characters we need. So if the name was Sam, it would only store 3 characters instead of the full 50. Like I said, far less important these days. Now, if we follow that lead, then clearly address is also going to be a varchar and probably about the same size. Suburb, I'm going to use a varchar, probably don't need as many characters. Postcode could stay as an integer. There are these tiny ints and small ints and things like that, but I've always found it useful just to keep it as an integer. Email, I'm going to do varchar again, but I'm going to make it a bit bigger because sometimes with the domain and everything on the end, emails can get fairly long. Phone, I'm actually going to do a char. Now you can't see it up here, you're going to have to scroll through a little bit. Windows scrolls a little too quickly, and I'm looking for simple chars. Now in all of my days, I've gone char 15 for a phone number because the longest phone number you can get is the international number. So if we count them up, including spaces and plus signs and things, you get +61 space, then 427 space 315 space 789, and that's 15 characters. It's actually 14, but that's okay. All right, we're almost done here. We can almost save it. Everything else there we don't need to change except this top line. I want you to change index on the top line to be the primary key. Now when you do that, it puts up this little thing and we simply go on that in the dialog. ID is now our primary key. Now a primary key is something that uniquely identifies everybody in this list. Remember the delete button? We're going to use that ID number with the delete button to delete people from this database later on. Last thing I want you to do is we're going to turn on AI. Now AI is a very popular term these days. This has nothing to do with artificial intelligence. It stands for auto increment, and what it means is I don't care about ID numbers. I'm going to let the computer automatically assign the next ID number to the next person I put in there. So it'll handle the ID numbers. I never really need to know about them. I'm just going to use them later when I need to identify who to delete. And so what we've done is we've created a database now that's containing all the information from the form plus this ID at the top. And at the top doesn't mean a thing in SQL. Wouldn't matter if we did that first or last. We've set primary key on the ID and we've made it auto increment. We've done that, so let's go down the bottom. You might have to scroll to find it. Like I said, it's a bit of a slippery scroll on Windows. And hit save. And we've now created, ignore all, I'll have to figure out why I've got those coming up. We've now created ourselves a container for our friends. And just to prove it, I'm going to go into assert. I'm going to ignore the ID because remember we've got that auto increment. I'm going to put in my good old friend John Jones from 12 whatever street, Pipamar 4209. Now his email was jjones, don't worry about the size of the box. And his phone number was, I can't even remember what I did, 0421 space 234 space 456, something like that. Now I can put a second person in if I want, but I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to hit the go button here. It tells me the actual SQL code to do what I just did. But if we go up to browse, you should see that, and it's a little hard to read when you first come into it. There's my table. There's my first row in the table. It's automatically got the ID number of 1 because he's the first. Next person will get the automatic ID number of 2. So we've now created ourselves a MySQL container or table that we can store our addresses in. Next video is going to deal with the PHP to access this data and to present it in our friends list when we first load up the page. then add to it and delete from it. Thanks.